We're back with NBA.
Stomach. So my brain does not have to think about, my body doesn't have to digest. It had me looking like a fool. And I sat down and the coach is yelling at me.
It just sounds like there were so many great things that happened as you started this shift. But what would you say was the most surprising benefit you experienced with the shift to a plant-based diet?
I'm 255 pounds. I played at 261 and 250. My weight stabilized. This is a 1964 Mustang Sally. And I don't have rims on it. I didn't put extenders. I didn't add extra mufflers. It looked like I haven't driven it, but I have. So that's the mentality. The mentality is take care of this spaceship you were given. This is a spaceship. This universe is going on inside. 73 trillion cells are working, should be working together.
I mean, I think here's the thing, John. When we see it in action, we see it in your life. Some people be like, well, that's anecdotal. That's John's experience. But I think it's so much more than that. And because you've had such great interactions with so many high-end athletes, what do you feel like is the most common myth or misconception that you've come across in terms of what it means to be a plant-based athlete? Because I'm sure you have a lot of flesh-eating athletes that are like, no, that's not true.
Listen, there was a documentary, and when they saw the documentary, a lot of guys realized the foods they were putting in, the fats that were getting into their blood, knowing that the more oxygen they had in their blood, the less oils they had, the better they played and felt and how their body performed. They knew this. When athletes say, man, I watched that and it sold me a dream or whatever, like I said, one of the things I did that most people don't is I got rid of the parasites that were controlling my brain. These athletes sometimes think, hey, I'm going to rush and go to a very well-known steakhouse that the person who paid money to watch you play is sitting next to you, and you're both eating food that's not going to benefit you. You would never, and I go back to a thoroughbred because I love horses, you would never feed a thoroughbred a hamburger. They would have the best grass, the best grain. They would be, because they are mostly muscle, their performance, we'll get into the whole racing them or whatever, but they're built to do that. And you wouldn't feed those animals. You know not to feed those animals whose jaws move like us any other product. Remember, they fed cows cow. The cows went mad. That's what mad cow is. And so to me, if I say that to them and I point out to them, listen, I'm as strong as you. I'm going to run as long as you. And I'm not breaking down. A lot of guys are breaking down, and they found a good guy, Derrick Rose, who was a rookie of the year, MVP. He was a great player. He tore his knee up. Then he tore his other knee. And then he stopped eating candy all the time, started eating better, started training his body, got balance. And too bad he's out of the league now, but he had a long career. And he talks about, I had to stop eating Happy Meals that wasn't making his body happy. It's never too late. The ones who wake up and pay attention to their avatar.
They tried to feed cows and they went mad. How did I not hear that before?
I don't know.
Amazing. Talking about communication and advocacy, what do you think is the most effective form of advocacy? I've concentrated on sort of personal advocacy. Shabnam has been getting into kind of institutional policy change. Do you think there's any potential for some sports policy that could advocate for plant-based?
So sport and entertainment is to keep the civilization from turning on the government.
Oh boy, we're getting deep, folks. We're getting deep.
I know my job in the world, right? I knew my job, right? It's to keep, give them what the Romans say, give them bread, wine, and entertainment, and they won't pay attention to what the politicians are doing. I used to think that when I would see my fellow members over at PETA be like Ingrid screaming and blood on her. And I was like, man, why is she doing that? And why? And why was it so important for my friend Michelle to throw flour on people? It's because we need people to rattle the fence. Those people are so important to our race by rattling the fence, letting you know the common person is down here. We're at your door. The other advocacy, when we have PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, our lobbyist group, and Dr. Bernard, and how it's very important that we got to talk to him on a political level. So that's at the bottom and that's at the top. And everybody in between that is living life. There's a lot of vegan restaurants closing, a lot of restaurants closing anyway. But the ones in between that find every opportunity to advocate for what's right is all a part of the activists. Give you an example, it wasn't just abolitionists that freed the slaves. It was the other slaves that wanted to be free. It was the other slaves that were free that helped those slaves. It was important in the 60s during the Black movement that Martin Luther King was doing it nonviolent. And it was as important for Malcolm X to say, if somebody puts their hand on you, send them to the cemetery. We needed both sides of the candle burning to get to the middle of it.
Be fit and healthy and compassionate on a plant-based diet.
When a person thinks about a plant-based diet, the first question that comes up is, where do you get your protein?
Societies who eat a lot of fiber don't get colon cancer. They don't have words for colon cancer in their language.
So fun to see that the protein myth is finally being debunked.
Society has tamed us to thinking that you need meat to get protein. It's odd because now I get my protein from the souls of my opponents.
We have overhyped and overblown this protein obsession.
When I found out that I was plant-based, everybody came up to me like, you're on drugs.
The people there told me like, oh, you can't be vegan and do CrossFit. And that just like really boosted my motivation. I was like, I'm gonna freaking show you.
Future generations are gonna look at us like, dang, I used to eat meat.
Going plant-based is like having sex. If you didn't enjoy it, you weren't doing it right.
If I could still be at the top of my game and eat this way, then why not?
Doctors automatically assume if you're vegan and you're not feeling well, then the problem has to do with your diet.
The most important thing we can do in terms of health and longevity is what we put in our mouth.
Having the chance to learn about the many vegan alternatives currently on the market was a fascinating experience. But it led me to question if eating a diet of only plants is truly the healthiest option for human beings. That's when I heard about a group of doctors and nutritionists in Washington, D.C., who are prescribing a plant-based diet and other lifestyle changes to their patients to treat and even reverse some of our top killers, such as heart disease, cancer, and type 2 diabetes.
I'm Dr. Neil Barnard. I founded the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and the Barnard Medical Center. And my job here is to make sure that we are advancing healthy diets as quickly as possible. The Physicians Committee is here in DC. We do lots of things. First of all, we run research studies for all the people who wonder, what is a vegan diet going to do for diabetes or weight or cholesterol or chronic pain? Is it safe? Is it beneficial? We are the people doing those studies. Secondly, we do a lot of policy work. So that means we go down to the US government and push healthier diets on them, as well as on medical organizations. We work with the AMA and others in a big way. We have educational programs, and we also are trying to change how research is done. instead of testing a drug on a rat or a mouse, why don't we explore human biology in ethical ways to really understand the diseases and how we can intervene?
PCRM has a plant-based focus, so we are interested in plant-based diet for prevention of disease. But if you have a chronic disease, as most of us do, like heart disease, diabetes, if you've had cancer, you're interested in cancer prevention, we talk about that too. So it's never too late to adopt a plant-based diet, and that's really our message to people.
Everyone who walks into Barnard Medical Center, everyone on the staff, from the people that check you in, to the people that submit your bills to insurance, to the nurses who take you back to the rooms, to the doctors, to the dietitians, are all on the same mission. We all have the same philosophy. Everyone follows a plant-based diet. Our primary goal is, not to run patients through as many as we can. It's really to help patients fundamentally adapt a healthier lifestyle and achieve optimum health.
The year before I went to medical school, I had a job at a hospital in Minneapolis, and I didn't know what I was getting into. I was the morgue attendant, meaning if somebody died in a hospital, I was there to deal with the body. And what that really meant was when they would do autopsies, the doctor who was doing the exam would explain to me what killed the person. And one day they opened up a body. The guy had died of a heart attack in the hospital the night before, probably from eating hospital food, but that's a different story. So anyhow, he cut the ribs off the chest, and that exposed the heart, which was filled with atherosclerotic plaque, which I was seeing for the first time. And he explained to me that this is your bacon and your eggs, and so that causes this hardening of the arteries. There is no better education to actually see coronary arteries, which we just hear about, to be able to slice one open and see that narrowing, that atherosclerotic plaque that's is like concrete in the arteries. At the end of the exam, he leaves the room and I've got to clean up. So I put the ribs back in the chest and I sewed up the skin and finished up. And I went up to the cafeteria and they were serving ribs for lunch. And I gotta tell you, it smelled like a dead body and it looked like a dead body. And I suddenly realized it is a dead body, not a human body, but a body nonetheless. And I didn't become a vegetarian on the spot, but that started me thinking and reflecting on our relationship with food. And as time went on, I started to realize that food is a critically important issue. Your food choices dictate your health, the health of the earth and all its inhabitants. So it's big stuff.
Meeting with the doctors at PCRM made me realize that I'd never really thought much about the impact that food has on our bodies. I wanted to dive deeper into this topic and thought that I'd start by seeing if there were any vegan athletes out there who were living their healthiest lives as plant eaters. I found out that there are a ton of vegan athletes. But there has to be some kind of flaw. How can you be competitive eating nothing but plants? I wanted to meet with some of these vegan athletes to learn how they do it. And the first one that I met with certainly showed me that vegans can be pretty awesome.
My name's KMF Awesome. First of all, I'm a bad motherfucker. I've been on the USA national team for about 10 years. I've won 8 US national championships, 4 Golden Glove national championships, 3 PAL championships, international gold medals. I've pretty much won everything except for the Olympics. I'm close to 400 fights now. I'm like the best. In my head, probably not in real life. In 2012, lost a bet and had to do the Engine 2 28-day vegan challenge. And around day 20 is when the food stopped tasting terrible, because I found out it takes like 17 days for your taste buds to adjust. And Then I think I kind of got the liquor out of my system and all the badness out of my system. And then I kind of felt the burst of energy. In the 28 days, I lost 32 pounds. And around day 26, day 27, when I started getting used to it, I was kind of a little bummed out because I liked the way I felt, but I didn't want to be like a vegan because they're weird people. So I told myself I'll just secretly do it for a little bit longer. And after about a year, I started like meeting cool vegans. I was like, I guess I can like come out the vegan closet. There's a lot of athletes going plant-based. I'm not happy about it. I used to be one of the famous ones, one of the best vegan athletes, and now I'm not even top 1,000. Thanks a lot, Rich Roll.
It's time to set the record straight once and for all with this carnivore versus plant-based thing. Both sides think they're right and the other side is wrong. Meat eaters will say we are designed to eat meat, and the plant eaters say we're designed to eat plants. Let's keep morality, ethics, environmental impact, and sentimental emotions out of it for a minute and just look at it from a strictly biological point of view. Let me answer the most common question right away. Why do so many people get better when they go carnivore? They get better because they stop eating pizza, bagels, pancakes, cereal, bread, pasta, cookies, cakes, sugar, soft drinks, ice cream, and waffles. Replace modern processed food with anything found in nature and you get similar results. You get the same results and you heal just about anything if you eat just fruits and vegetables and greens and nuts and seeds. As long as it's found in nature. Pasta, ice cream, bagels, and beer are not found in nature. One of the most important things to realize here is what most people call vegan is not healthy. Some of the unhealthiest people in the world are vegan because all they eat is dead, highly processed junk. Bread, pizza, pasta, fake cheese, fake meat, fried food, cooked to death food, wheat, sugar, preservatives, processed oils, cereal, jam, syrup, and all that. Just keep going. None of it is natural and none of it is healthy. They eat junk food. They're junk food vegans. They have health issues. Very few vegans are raw vegan, but raw vegans aren't off the hook either. Most of them are basically fruitarians because fruit is sweet and it tastes good, and all they eat and drink is sweet stuff. Mangoes and bananas and watermelon and grapes and sweet fruity smoothies and tons of orange juice. Sugar, 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 sugar. This is also not natural. If you were plopped in nature and you were forced to survive, you would not find a lot of sweet stuff. Most of what you'd find out there would be bland or even bitter, and bitter is actually good for you. It stimulates digestion and it helps clean the liver. Sweet stuff feeds bacteria, fungus, yeast, mold, and parasites, and fruit is half glucose, half fructose. Those are sugars. The body cannot use fructose, so the liver has to work overtime to convert it to glucose so the body can use it. Do not misquote me here. I am not saying to not eat fruit. There's nothing wrong with eating fruit, but you can't live your whole life eating nothing but sweet fruit. Even monkeys know to eat half green and half fruit, plus occasionally some bugs and some other unmentionable gross stuff. If you're mainly fruitarian and your hair is thinning and your teeth are starting to rot, you might want to read my book, Heal Yourself 101, which describes the biggest mistakes that raw vegans make and how to do it right. Okay, number 2, the paleo argument. People think paleo means cavemen with spears hunting woolly mammoths, right? And they were healthy and had long lives and we should eat like them too. Well, scientific studies analyzing paleo poop found most of what they actually ate was plants and roots. They scavenged whatever they could. It's a lot easier to sneak up on a berry bush or some roots than an animal. And yes, they did eat some animal foods, which they did when they could, but you always hear meat eaters say, our ancestors ate this way. No, they didn't. Well, they ate whatever they could. They were omnivores. They ate a little bit of everything. The average lifespan of a paleo caveman was around 30 years. That doesn't sound like the fountain of youth to me. Okay, the human body can survive in just about anything. It's one of the most amazing machines ever created. Not many creatures in this world can adapt as much as we can in order to survive. Now notice I said the word survive, not thrive. There was a guy who ground up his car into a powder and then he ate it. He ran it through his body and he survived.
Then he says, oh, this is great. Then he did the same thing with a small airplane. Now, does that mean we're supposed to eat cars and airplanes? The body is very forgiving. It's very forgiving. It is designed to tolerate a heck of a lot. Okay, so why is it so easy for carnivores to get big muscles so easily? Well, most of them eat beef, right? And dairy, which contain hormones that makes a cow grow to be 2,000 pounds. So yes, if you eat it, it makes you grow too. The term beef eater, that alcohol, comes from the Queen's Guards in Old England. They were fed beef so they could be bigger and stronger than the average person, hence the term beef eater. But those same amino acids, glutamine, arginine, choline, and hormones like IGF-1 that makes you grow also makes anything else grow inside you, also like your prostate or cancer. But you're under 50 and you don't care, right? Because you lost your fat, you have energy, you don't get sick anymore, and you feel on top of the world. You feel great. Okay, fine. On the other hand, there are also lots of vegan bodybuilders out there, and of course, the first thing everybody says is vegans can't look like that without steroids. It's the most predictable brainwash cliche out there. What those commenters fail to comprehend is that those muscles are still made of protein. If all they're eating is plants, then obviously they're still getting their protein from plants. Steroids do not make muscle. Those are messengers, just like hormones. They tell the body to work harder and faster, like adding more construction workers so the house can be built faster. But the house is still made of bricks and concrete and wood like any other house. Muscle protein is like bricks needed to build the house, and using more construction workers is not necessary unless you want to build the house faster. Okay, what about fat loss? Carnivores lose fat, right? They look great and have lots of energy and they don't get sick anymore, so do people on a true whole food plant-based diet who don't eat bread and pasta and fruit juice or any refined carbs. They also lose their fat and become lean because stuff out of the garden is largely fiber and water. There's no portion control. Fiber and water just goes right through you. It cleans you out. There's no calorie counting. You can't eat too much if you eat a true whole food plant-based diet because all that fiber makes you feel full. But most people don't eat whole foods. Like granola bars, bread, cereal, and energy drinks are not whole foods, and that makes you fat, and that's what most vegans do. It's all processed, dead junk that's not found in nature. And this is the part where people say, yeah, but all that fiber makes you bloat and fart. Yes, because your body isn't used to it, because most people have been eating refined carbs and they have the wrong kind of gut bacteria. It takes time to get rid of the bad gut bacteria and start growing the good ones. All right, don't start up with the anti-nutrient and lectin and oxalate argument. A healthy body naturally has gut bacteria that breaks down oxalates. But eating too much bread, sugar, and pasta makes you sick and rots your teeth, so people take antibiotics, which kills the healthy gut bacteria, and now they can't break down the oxalates anymore. As for lectins, yes, high doses in raw beans are too strong for straight human consumption. But low doses of lectins found in most plants are actually really good for you, and they have a purpose. Did you know that a study found that lectins can distinguish between cancer cells and normal cells and kill them and remove them from the body? They stimulate gut function, they limit tumor growth, and they help you lose unwanted fat. Lectins in fava beans, for example, have been found to turn colon cancer cells back into normal colon cells, and this was found over and over and over by over 14 studies and over 2 million participants. I'll put the links down below. Don't fall for the propaganda and the misinformation from either side. But then there's those deficiencies that everyone brings up on both diets. Modern grocery store produce has very little B12, and meat has very little vitamin C, and it has zero fiber. Cherry pick whatever you want about either diet, but let's not lose sight of the big picture. If you stop eating modern processed food like pasta, pizza, cookies, ice cream, and beer, and only eat things found in nature, you will probably heal most of your problems. So in a sense, both sides are right for short-term results. Do you know what B12 even is? It's bacteria poop. If you were to go in nature and you pulled a carrot out of the ground and you ate it, there would be bacteria and bacteria poop, aka B12, on it. You don't need to take creatine or carnitine. Did you know the body makes its own? Yup. The kidneys, liver, and pancreas create about 1 to 2 grams of creatine per day. It's made from arginine, glycine, and methionine. Those are amino acids, and amino acids are what make protein. Okay, so let's talk protein. The body makes protein from amino acids, which are found in both plants and animals. It starts as a plant, then plant-eating animals eat the plants and turn it into protein, which turns into muscle. Almost all beef, chicken, and pork is animal muscle, which is made of protein, aka amino acids. But if we eat it, it does not immediately turn into muscle in us. The body breaks it back down into amino acids and then reassembles them back into whatever the body needs most. Just because we want it to be making muscles doesn't mean that's what it will be used for. The body decides what the top priority is. So if we don't use our muscles, like we just sit around all day, and we don't do resistance exercises or lift weights, then that protein gets used for something else. It can even get turned into fat if the person is totally sedentary. Animal meat is easy to turn into protein for humans because the work of the assembling the proper ratios of amino acids has already been done. Plants can also give us the amino acids we need, but sometimes the ratios are different, so several different plant foods need to be eaten to get the proper amino acid profile levels. But even though eating animals is an easier way to get the proper protein ratios, there are issues, like animal products have zero fiber, which our body needs because fiber is the main food source of our much needed gut probiotics. And then there's the issue of hormones. Cow products especially have hormones that make them grow to be 2,000-pound animals. Doesn't matter if it's grass-fed or not. These hormones, if taken for an extended period of time, may again fuel cancer to grow, like prostate in men. Dairy is especially estrogenic because it's full of IGF-1, which fuels female cancers like breast, ovarian, and uterine, and prostate also in men, and colon. Humans can survive on just about anything for a while, but the long-term effects are what we should be concerned with. As for those who say that meat is what we are supposed to eat, okay, let's look at the carnivore animals out there. They don't chew their food very much. They just rip at their prey and gulp down huge chunks, sometimes even swallowing the animal whole, feathers, fur, bones, and everything. Their stomach acid is so strong, it can break all that down and dissolve the animal they ate. Try swallowing feathers, fur, and bones sometime and see what happens. No, don't. Don't. Okay, you'll end up in the emergency room. Again, we are designed to be able to survive on just about anything if we have to. Plants, animals, anything. Nowadays, we don't have to kill animals, and heck, we don't even have to grow our own food anymore. We have this thing called grocery stores right now, so it doesn't look like much of a survival situation to me. Anyway, so what are the longest living people in the world? What do they eat? It's kind of the exact opposite of a carnivore diet. Okinawans, Seventh-day Adventists, they eat less than 5% animal products. Most of it's fish or seafood, and the rest is 95% is plant-based, but not refined crap like the modern world. Most of it is sweet potatoes and beans and stuff like that. There's no bread, no pizza, no cereal, no cheese, like the modern typical people do. So what most people call plant-based is not the same as whole food plant-based. Flour baked in an oven is not found in nature. Deep fried anything is not found in nature. Look at the labels on your fake cheese and your crackers. All those refined oils like corn, soy, vegetable, canola, safflower, palm, and cottonseed, that's what most vegans eat. So the meat eaters say, ha, see, you need to eat meat. There needs to be a better understanding of eating the way nature intended. High-fat animal products have very little sugar or carbs, and they don't raise insulin as much, and they don't cause sugar crashes like the high-processed carbs a typical vegan eats. Animal products are high-fat, and fat creates much longer-lasting energy, and it helps keep you feeling full longer. Carbaholics, which is most vegans, eat empty calories and they get hungry every hour. They snack all day and they get fat. Animal eaters don't need to eat as often because they have more energy and they get leaner. So, of course, they are quick to deduce that animal products are better for you. Remember, though, humans cannot produce their own vitamin C, one of the most important vitamins for life and health, or vitamin D, which is another critical vitamin barely found in meat, and it has zero fiber. Ever wonder why carnivore people get colon cancer? Eating only meat results in a gut full of meat-eating bacteria. And meat-eating bacteria cannot do the things that fiber-eating bacteria does. Fiber plays a key role in binding and removing toxins, heavy metals, and other waste products from the body. Maybe you've heard of the gut-brain connection and how probiotics affect our mind, our memory, our mood, and our hormones. Gut bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs, such as butyrate, which help reduce inflammation. It regulates immune function. Even big-time keto meat eaters like Thomas DeLauer and Dr. Berg talk about the importance of fiber. Eating only animal products and nothing else is an imbalanced diet, which will eventually make that evident. You'll figure that out down the road. So high-protein diets are hard on the kidneys, and it could lead to kidney damage down the road. Again, short-term may show benefits, but long-term effects need to be considered. As for the blood-type diet, I'm the kind that's supposed to eat meat. I haven't eaten meat in 30 years. I'm 62 years old, and I'm in much better health now than I was 30 years ago. As for supplements, don't use that as an excuse because vegan food is lacking B12. We live in unnatural houses, we drive unnatural cars, we wear unnatural clothes, and we stare at unnatural computers all day long. So yes, we need to supplement no matter what diet we are on. It does not mean our diet is wrong. That's like saying it's wrong to wear clothes because, well, we weren't born with any. Finally, let's say you come across a field with a cow and a giant bush full of juicy strawberries. Which one does your mouth water for? Okay, I know most of you already have your minds made up and nothing will change that. You want to eat meat? Fine. Do this. You should know where your food comes from. Raise the animal yourself. Get to know it. Get it to know its personality because it has feelings too. Let it enjoy the company of a mate. Let it experience love and companionship and even allow it to raise an offspring. Then when you feel the need for eat animal flesh for protein, kill it. Watch the look in its eyes as life ebbs away from its body. Have a really good look at its last expression and how it looks at you while it's dying. Then cut it open, pull out its intestines and its heart, which were working fine just a moment ago, and think of what you did. Would you eat your dog or cat? Why not? It's protein. They eat dogs and cats in other countries. Do you seriously think you need to kill animals to eat? I mean, do you seriously think you'll be lacking something by eating only plants? Why do you think some of the world's top athletes only eat plants? The only thing most people lack is proper knowledge of biochemistry and body chemistry and biology. People simply believe what they are told or see on the internet, and they simply repeat what others have done forever. Sure, people have eaten meat as far back as we can remember. Does that mean it's healthy just because humans have done it for thousands of years? Humans also waged wars. They raped and killed and destroyed most of the planet for thousands of years. Does that mean it's right and we should keep doing it? Do you want to keep acting like a barbarian? Okay, look, the choice is yours. But if you feel so strongly about eating meat, then take some responsibility and do it yourself, just once. If you want to eat an animal, kill it yourself and see what it's like. Just see what it's like. See how you feel afterwards. Search your soul. Does it really feel like the right thing? Is it really necessary? As with many things in life, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And no matter what diet you choose, pick whatever one you want. It doesn't matter what diet you choose. The general rule is eat things you find in nature as close to the form that you find it in nature. An apple is healthy, but apple pie is not. Animals are obviously found in nature, but we are not designed to eat just animals exclusively. That's where people veer off into extremism. Yes, people get better eating keto and carnivore, not because of the meat, but because they are no longer eating pizza, beer, ice cream, pancakes, cereal, and chips. Raw vegans have the same health results. And on the other hand, vegans are some of the unhealthiest people because they eat processed food, fake meat, fake cheese, mayonnaise, bread, pasta, pizza, cookies, cereal, and they drink lots of high sugar fruit juice so they get sick, right? And the carnivores say, see, I told you so. Extremism in either direction is not a long-term realistic goal. People do not need to kill animals to be healthy, but it is possible to be much healthier either way if it's straight from nature. One of the worst diets is a high-carb, low-fat diet, which is why so many women end up having their gallbladders removed and end up with thyroid issues. There are plenty of healthy fats in the plant world. The choice is personal, but it's not necessary to kill animals to be healthy. Eat whatever you want, but if you get cancer, I highly suggest switching temporarily to an all plant-based, whole food, minimally cooked diet. Red meat has arachidonic acid, that accelerates cancer. Chicken and turkey is high in choline, which converts TMAO, which fuels cancer growth. Dairy increases IGF-1, which makes cancer grow faster and more aggressively. And if you're raw vegan, know that nuts and seeds and sugary fruits also feed cancer. And if you have cancer, whatever you do, do not go on a fruit juice fast like some influencers are dangerously saying. Sugar feeds cancer and amino acids, aka protein, make it grow. It doesn't matter if it's eggs, red meat, chicken, turkey, dairy, nuts, seeds, or tofu. You cannot cheat nature. It always wins. So no matter what you choose to eat stuff you find in nature as close to the form that you find it in nature. Women, don't let your carb and dairy addiction kill you. The bread, the cheese, the pasta, and the ice cream just isn't worth it. And men, eating meat doesn't make you a man. Strength of character, integrity, discipline, and how you treat others does.
Hey everyone, this is Klaus from Plant Based Eats. So we recently posted this on Instagram. I received a few comments pushing back on the claim that gladiators ate mainly plants. So, is this true? Let's take a look at what we know.
Archaeologists recovered the remains of at least 68 gladiators. There have been more than 5,000 bones analyzed for the study. We found in the cross-section of the bone very high bone mineral density, which indicated intense training and high-quality diet to build up strong muscles and strong bones. This diet gave the gladiators the nickname hordeari, which means beans and barley muncher. We know different food sources give different amounts of strontium in the bones. High strontium levels in vegetarians, low strontium levels in carnivores. If there is low strontium in the sample, the flame will stay blue. If there is high strontium levels, it will change from blue to red. The gladiators were predominantly vegetarian.
And they analyzed these gladiators. In this case, they looked at the bones of the gladiators and they looked at the mineral content, and they found they had a low zinc, high strontium content, which indicated that their diet was very, very, very vegetarian. In fact, they called it vegan, the gladiators. And they compared them with people that were buried outside and who weren't gladiators, and of course they found their diet was a bit richer. So the guy who did this was kind of interesting. It kind of shows you how far people will go to explain their biases. What this confirmed was something that had been written throughout history, and you can find in many stories of gladiators of the past, is that the gladiator lived on barley. In fact, they called the gladiator the barley men. Now think about it for a minute. Your job is to fight and kill or you die. So are you going to make the effort to be as efficient as possible? Of course you are. And so the gladiators, they lived on the most efficient fuel that made them the strongest and the best fighters that they could possibly be. So they ate barley. So they're the barley men. Okay, they're the barley men. Everybody knows this. This excavation proved they were barley men. Without a doubt, they were vegans.
So that was the late Dr. John McDougall. What about actors in the gladiator films? Well, in the following clips, you'll hear from Russell Crowe, who talks about how he cut out red meat in order to get into shape for Gladiator.
The gladiators cast were out on the red carpet last night, eating like a gladiator. Could be good for you.
The gladiators have got historians talking about what real-life gladiators used to eat back in Rome. And actually, it's not what you might think it is. People often think meat and beef, chicken, all that protein. It's not that. They'd had a diet which was heavy on whole grains and legumes, which is music to my ears, because we're trying to get more people to eat plants like whole grains. Now, whole grains are grains that haven't had their outer layer removed, which contains a lot of that fiber, the carbohydrates and the proteins, which are really good for you. Legumes are things like chickpeas, lentils, beans, and there's so many health benefits to eating these, getting them into your diet at least every day. And you could end up looking like Paul Mescal. I mean, you never know.
And everybody's happy.
I mean, to take that kind of weight off, seriously take it off, not just drop your
yourself down for a few days or whatever. But to seriously take it off, you've got to, take on a different lifestyle, So then I went home to the farm where I live in Australia and just worked with the animals and started doing, just took on a whole different diet. Stopped drinking alcohol for a couple of months. I stopped eating meat, red meat, and brought the weight down and at the same time as building the muscles up, So I think probably the prep for it physically was about 5 months,
My name is Rich Roll. I'm an ultra endurance athlete. I'm an author, podcast host, husband, and dad of 4 kids. So I compete in ultra endurance multi-sport events, specifically long distance triathlons, things that are longer than a typical Ironman. In the past, I've specialized in a race called Ultraman, which is a double Ironman distance triathlon that circumnavigates the Big Island of Hawaii over 3 days. It's a 320-mile event. In 2009, I was 6th in that race. Then in 2010, a buddy and I did something called Epic 5, where we did 5 Ironmans on 5 Hawaiian islands, and we completed that. And then this past year, I competed in a race called the Otillo Swim Run World Championships in Sweden, where a teammate and I, Chris Houth, who's also my coach, were the fastest Americans. And that's a 75-kilometer race. It's about 40 miles of running and 6 miles of swimming all told. My whole life growing up, I basically ate what I call the window diet. If you can drive your car up to a fine dining establishment, roll the window down, and they hand you food through your window, that's what you eat. And that's how I ate for most of my life. And so during that period of time, I was 50 pounds overweight and just had an episode late one night, shortly before my 40th birthday, where I was walking up a flight of stairs to go to bed late one night and had to pause. I was winded, I was out of breath, sort of buckled over with tightness in my chest. And it was a terrifying moment because heart disease runs in my family, and my mother had been telling me my whole life that I had to watch what I eat. And when you're young, you're just like, whatever, you don't pay attention to that kind of thing. And it all kind of clicked in and crystallized for me in that moment. And that really began my journey into exploring food as medicine and repairing my well-being. And that's what ultimately led me to a plant-based diet.
I go, the people really want to know who I is and who I be. They stop and stare when they see me. If I said it once, no need to repeat. Run up on me, watch you fall to your knees. Tip my hat when it's time for the kill. Ain't no beast when you're really real.
I'm Tui van Rentergem, and I'm an online fitness coach for women who are either vegan or who want to go vegan. About 5 years ago, I was scrolling on Facebook and I came across this video series of Slaughterhouse in Finland, where I'm from, and something made me click on it. I didn't want to watch it. It was just a couple of seconds, and that made the switch for me. And that blindfold was just stripped off, and from that moment I was like, okay, I have to go vegan. And at the time I was actually eating a lot of animal products. I was like eating tons of meats, eggs and dairy, because I was like all focused on like building muscle and gains. I thought I would lose all of that because I didn't know anyone who was like an athlete or anything, but I was like, just for the ethics, I have to do this. And I just decided I'm gonna try and figure out a way. I found CrossFit and I got into CrossFit, and then people there told me like, oh, you can't be vegan and do CrossFit, like it's just really stupid, you're just gonna compromise on your performance. And that just like really boosted my motivation. I was like, I'm gonna freaking show you. What happened when I switched to vegan, my fat percentage dropped to like 13%, which is like quite good for CrossFit like females. And that massively helps in my gymnastics. Like I went from 0 to 15 pull-ups, I got my first muscle ups, and I thought like being like the worst gymnast ever actually like was able to improve a lot.
Yay, food! Thank you! Thank you so much!
Meeting with Cam, Tui, and Rich showed me that being strong and fit on a plant-based diet was indeed possible. But I wanted to learn about something that I heard was difficult to get from plants: protein. I heard about a man living in the mountains of Norway who told me that if I met with him, he'd teach me everything that he'd learned.
My name is John Venus. I'm a vegan public figure focusing on health and fitness. I make YouTube videos showing how to be fit and healthy and compassionate on a plant-based diet, and I just try to spread the message online. I started lifting weights, I'd say 6 years ago, after meeting my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and she lifted weights, and I didn't lift weights at that point. I was just doing soccer. So I figured, if my girlfriend's lifting weights, I better start to catch up with her, basically. And then it evolved more and more. I looked more into how to optimize my training to maximize muscle gains. But I don't compete. I'm not a professional bodybuilder or anything. It's just something that I love doing. Initially, I went vegan for ethical reasons, and I was prepared to take a hit on the physical side of things. But in reality, to my surprise, the opposite happened. I really felt like it was important for me to push myself as hard as possible and to actually prove that not only can you maintain your gains and your muscle, but you can build an incredible physique if that is your goal. And I'm not the only one doing this. There have been an explosion of vegan bodybuilders now, and it's so fun to see that myth, the protein myth, is finally being debunked.
I was definitely impressed that John was able to build a great physique eating nothing but plants. But I'd always heard that plants are an inferior source of protein, and don't you need to eat meat to get protein?
Oh my gosh, excuse me for a minute. It should occur to people that if animal foods are the only source of protein, how is it that a cow grows to be 1,200 pounds on nothing but grass? How is it that chickens and turkeys grow to adult size eating nothing but corn? The connection that people aren't making is that there is plenty of protein in plants.
The U.S. government says that a woman needs about 46 grams of protein a day, a man about 56 grams per day. What if, as an experiment one day, you decided to eat 2,000 calories of broccoli, that's all you ate in a day? What you would discover is you would get 146 grams of pure protein. The next day, if you had 2,000 calories of lentils, you get 157 grams of protein. Now, hopefully you're not eating just broccoli or just lentils. Eat some broccoli and some lentils and all kinds of other stuff. But what you discover is you are easily getting all the protein you could ever need, and that's even true for high-level athletes.
The protein myth, how long do you have to talk about this? So when we talk about protein, what are we actually talking about? Does anybody even really know what that word means? In truth, what we're talking about is amino acids. There's a number of amino acids, 9 of which are dubbed the essential amino acids. These are the amino acids that our bodies cannot synthesize on their own. We need to get them from the foods that we're eating. And when you're eating plant-based, you're just getting those amino acids lower on the food chain, the same place that the animals that you were previously eating were getting them from.
So instead of looking at just okay, this is the protein source, I started to understand that the protein accumulates over the course of the day. And then I realized I was eating way too much protein. But people also don't realize that protein also accumulates into excess fats. It doesn't just magically form into muscle, especially if you're not working out.
I know people who take a 30-minute walk on their lunch break and then have a 60-gram protein shake for a walk. They're not athletes, they literally walked.
We have overhyped and overblown this protein obsession to such a large extent. Most people are walking around eating anywhere from 2 to 5 times as much protein as they need.
The obsession in the United States and other Western countries with animal-sourced protein literally comes from marketing.
Teen athletes are using protein supplements to make them stronger and a lot faster.
Taking the right protein to build the size and strength needed to compete with the best in the world.
New Weetabix On The Go protein, a proper breakfast, bottled. If you're training for a marathon, or you're a professional football player, or you're a professional boxer, or professional cyclist, guess what? You're not eating 2,000 calories a day. You might be eating 5,000 calories a day. So what happens to your protein intake if you eat 5,000 calories a day? Well, it goes up. So the answer is not more protein. It's more food, real food.
If an athlete wants to go onto a really high protein diet because they're going to do a marathon or a triathlon or something like that, I recommend they eat exactly the same foods that they would eat if they were going to play ping pong. It's just that they're going to eat a lot more because they're burning calories. And in the same way as their lungs will take in more air, and they don't have to think about oxygen. Just you take in more air and oxygen happens to be part of it. When you're exercising your muscles, you take in more food and protein is part of it. You're going to be fine.
Everything has protein in it. Like, there's not a single vegetable that doesn't have protein. And some like good vegan protein sources, we think of like legumes, whole grains, tempeh, tofu, seitan, lentils, edamame, chickpeas, other beans, other soy products. When people stress about protein, just Google. It takes you like 3 minutes to learn like a massive list that is high in protein, and then just involve them in your meals and you're good to go.
I'm asked about my protein more frequently than anything else. And my answer is always, I get my protein from the souls of my opponents. Because no one really cares about the answer. They just have they have a rebuttal for whatever you say, and they just want to have a conversation about why their diet is right. And if you answer like that, you just end that conversation. We all get a laugh, they kind of feel bad, and I walk away from the situation not being hated.
I don't know of any doctors that are treating patients in the developed world for a protein deficiency. It just doesn't exist. Meanwhile, we're all fiber deficient. People are not eating enough fruits and vegetables. I've been doing this for 11 years. I'm 51 years old right now. I can go out and still compete at a very high level. I've never had any problems building lean muscle mass, getting stronger, repairing my body, recovery. All of that is completely in check. And believe it or not, if you're just grazing on a wide variety of healthy plant-based foods close to their natural state, you are not going to have a problem meeting your daily recommended allowance of protein. It's really a non-issue.
Rich Roll has been vegan for more than a decade and is still able to perform as a high-level athlete. But I wanted to see if there were any other athletes who have been vegan for even longer. I came across a guy who's been vegan for more than 20 years, and to my surprise, I found him in the gym.
I bet when I land, they gon' tell me it's luck again. See that I'm winning, it's harder to watch. I'm setting the stage, you should give me my props. You ain't got no soul, you lacking the spirit. You talk out your neck, I'ma show you I'm with it. I would really hate for you to sit and watch me win again and win again and win again. I know it's probably getting on me and when I'm sending them. So if I ever win again, it's nobody the minimum. I didn't have to sell my soul.
My name is Tori Washington, and I am a competitive bodybuilder, coach, trainer, and I was raised to a mother who was a Seventh-day Adventist, and Seventh-day Adventist was the kindling to me further becoming this vegan activist that you see now.
Tori told me that he was raised as a strict vegetarian with his mother in the US, until he moved in with his grandparents in Jamaica. But when he returned to the US as a teenager, it was his Jamaican heritage that inspired him to adopt a vegan lifestyle and stick with it for what's been more than 2 decades.
I actually didn't start for health or for the animals or for the earth. I started this based on not being a hypocrite. Because in the Rastafarian culture, it was supposed to be no meat, no form of byproduct from an animal whatsoever. But a lot of Rastas just adapted the marijuana, the donning of the locks, the music culture, but they didn't take it as far with the food aspect. They still ate chicken and fish. And so I said, you know, if I'm gonna claim to be Rasta, let me go all the way. And so from that moment on, I decided to make that shift into eating strictly just plants for nutrition. And I did that in 1998. Who would have known? At that time in my life, I took that step. Look where it landed me. Think about a young kid moving back from Jamaica to the US. These kids picked on us because we sounded differently. Like, hey, you need to go back on a banana boat. What's wrong with you? Why do you sound like that? During that time, you know, you want to do something to kind of make yourself seem to stand out. Then I found Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he had this superhero look. And so I wanted that superhero look, so I decided to follow his lead and just started working out. Then once I started high school, I started working out even more. And to the point where people were afraid of me because of how I looked. Not that I was fighting or going to beat people up, but I had this look like you can kick some ass.
No one made my goals for me, but I'm exactly you where I'm supposed to be. Cause it's the path that God chose for me. So even if some doors close for me, I still won't let y'all close to me. So please step back where you're supposed to be. Put the game all on hold for me. And sit back, watch me roast the beat.
So I was vegan in 98. And by 2009, I started competing. Now I'm IFBB Pro, which is the highest you can get when it comes to the pro rankings. There's not many people who plant-based or vegan that have the IFBB Pro status who gained it while already being plant-based or vegan, which put me in the same ranks as Arnold Schwarzenegger, someone who I kind of looked up to. Over the years, 2009 to now, I can't even tell you. I think it's been more than 25 shows and always within the top 5 or top 10. Do I look like I'm not getting protein? I mean, really?
By cutting out the animal middleman, they actually get those amino acids or those proteins in a much more healthful form, because when they come from the animal sources, they're accompanied by fat, cholesterol, hormones, and a whole host of things that have a negative impact on our health and our physiology. And science and research shows this, that populations that are plant-based live longer, have less disease, less dementia, and importantly, remain more functional throughout their lifetime. Human beings can get all of the protein they need from eating nothing but plants.
Hi, my name is Tia Blanco. I'm a professional surfer. I'm 21 years old, and I've been vegan now for 5 years. I would say that my biggest accomplishment so far has been winning gold medals for the United States in 2014 and 2015. It was some of the best moments of my life representing my country. I was born as a vegetarian. I've never had red meat in my whole entire life. When I was about 13, I would say, I switched to pescatarian, and I started eating like eggs and fish because I was just embarrassed. Like, I wanted to eat what all the other kids ate. I didn't want to be an outsider. And I didn't really know why I didn't eat meat. Like, my parents raised me to not eat meat, but I never did that research on my own. So I would say when I was like 14 or 15 years old, I started watching different documentaries. I watched Earthlings, I read Forks Over Knives, and The China Study. And I just felt very enlightened. And then a couple of days following, I went on YouTube and I watched Behind Glass Walls. And if you've seen that, it's very, very hard to watch. And I just remember crying my eyes out like the whole night. And I was just like, there's no way I could ever support the people that do this to these animals. Like, it's just not fair. When I went vegan, I noticed a huge switch in energy levels. I just felt strong, but just like I have all this energy to do what I want throughout the day. So I think it definitely gets rid of fatigue.
I was amazed that all of these athletes were benefiting from eating an entirely plant-based diet. But what exactly are the benefits that they're receiving?
The primary benefit of plant-based eating for athletes is improved recovery time. And so, you can do these studies. You can do it with blueberries, you can do it with a variety of plant foods. You can do it blinded, where you feed people a smoothie, a fake blueberry smoothie versus a real blueberry smoothie with real blueberry powder versus some fake blueberry taste. And they both taste the same and look the same. But the group that actually got the real blueberries, you do all sorts of, exercise tests the next day, and the recovery time in terms of strength, in terms of power, bounces back so much quicker. So basically, it just allows you to train that much harder. Now, it's the training that's actually got to give you the performance, right? It's nothing you put in your mouth that's got to be a substitute for putting in the time. It's just that you can put in more time, right? Your body can heal faster, recover faster, and you can work and train that much harder eating healthy and supporting your body.
I credit my adoption of a plant-based diet with everything that I've been able to accomplish as an athlete. And there's a little bit of misunderstanding out there. People think that I compete despite my dietary proclivities and preferences, but it's actually quite the opposite. The holy grail is recovery. You don't get stronger or faster during the workout. It's what happens in between those workouts that make you better. And as every athlete knows, the faster, the more expeditious you can recover and bounce back in between workouts, the harder you can train, the longer you can go.
So when an athlete starts a plant-based diet, they're lowering their inflammation, which would be caused by meat in the diet and dairy and animal proteins in the diet. They're getting improved blood flow throughout all the blood vessels in their body. So especially as an athlete, you want blood flow. You want blood to the muscles. The blood is what carries the oxygen. You want as much oxygen getting to your muscles as possible. So, you know, I see advertisements online, take this to improve your oxygenation. You can do that with food, you know, like eat better food, eat plant-based foods, and you're going to improve the oxygenation. You're going to recover faster. That increased blood flow is going to help get the waste out of your body. So the products of metabolism, basically the waste products for when you're working out, you're going to be able to get rid of those faster. You know, you're going to feel better overall.
The vegan diet has allowed me to have quicker recovery time and be healthier, which is kind of annoying because I used to always hear old people talk about, you're not going to be young forever. And like, yes, I am. And although I'm not old yet, this feels like I'm reversing the age process.
It started out with distance runners. And then it was tennis players like Serena Williams and Venus Williams and Novak Djokovic, who, you know, after you win Wimbledon and the US Open and you're vegan, he started his own vegan restaurant, and it just became cool. And then football players started doing it, showing it's not just the endurance athletes, it's the muscle athletes too.
Before he retired after a 9-year career with the NFL, Derek Morgan, a defensive lineman for the Tennessee Titans, inspired a large portion of his team to start eating plant-based to improve their recovery times and increase their performance on the field. Charity Morgan, Derek's wife, was whipping up incredible meals in the kitchen, acting as the plant-based chef for the team.
So Derek was the first one that said, okay, I'm going to walk down this road of trying a new way of eating. When he started doing more and more research, he kept coming up with this plant-based, take out meat, take out dairy, to where he couldn't ignore it. And he said, okay, I'm just going to try it. He never wanted to commit to it, neither did I. I said, I'm just going to try it for 2 weeks and see how I feel. But once he started that first week, and then the second week, and he realized how he felt, and he realized he had less mucus in his chest and less inflammation, that's when he said, okay, I can't go back to what I was eating before. And the same with me. It's no comparison because I was waking up every day, walking straight to my coffee machine and pushing the button and going, okay, need my coffee. Those days stopped when I started eating plant-based. I had way more energy, and I couldn't forsake that for anything. To unlearn something is probably the hardest thing to do. And I tell people upon walking this journey of being plant-based or being vegan or whatever journey you want to walk down, it's mental. It's 100% mental.
When we were all born in the delivery room, nobody asked for fried chicken, pork chops, or ice cream. Those are all learned habits. And just like we learned dysfunctional dietary habits, we can jettison those unhealthy dietary habits and adopt new ones. And once we adopt a plant-based diet, you learn to love it, and you don't miss what you used to eat. In fact, you're happier because you know you're no longer harming yourself, harming your health, and harming the world around you.
With the way I cook, I never sacrifice on the flavors. So I'm going into like my archives of how I make this or how I make that. I go to my old culinary books from school. And I just take out the meat and the dairy and I leave everything else the same. Make what you always make. Just find the vegan version of it.
So oftentimes, like, people think when you eat vegan it's really restrictive, and that's what I thought as well. I thought like you just only eat lettuce and carrots, and then what actually happened, my eyes just started opening because I started to like experiment foods that I never even knew existed. What I started to eat, it went from like maybe 5 meals that I was rotating into just like experimenting so much more foods, and I just like formed a really different relationship with food because I became connected and I started to actually care about also the flavor and how to actually like enjoy the food rather than just seeing it as fuel.
While many people adopt a plant-based diet and feel better than ever, it's no doubt that some people feel the opposite. So what are they getting wrong?
From time to time, I will hear from somebody that'll say, oh, I tried to be vegan or I tried to be plant-based, but I was so weak and so tired and I started losing weight and I had to stop. I always ask them, well, what were you eating? And they say, well, I was eating, a lot of salads and stir fry. And I said, that's your problem. Salads are wonderful in terms of their fiber content, their nutrient content, but they have very few calories. Same thing with stir fry. The vegetables that go into stir fry are mainly water and fiber. They're very healthy, but that is food that is fit for a 3-pound rabbit. You're a 150-pound human being. You need food. You need to be eating legumes, beans, peas, lentils. You need root vegetables, potatoes, yams, yucca, sweet potatoes. You need grains, corn, rice, barley, oats. All of these foods are much more calorie concentrated, much more protein concentrated, and they will give you the nutrients that you need to not only sustain yourself, but to actually be healthy and get the full benefits of being plant-based.
So there's 2 vitamins that are not made by plants. So with the exception of those 2, everything else is available in the produce aisle, right? There's no, vitamin, mineral, protein, anything that we can't get, with the exception of these 2 vitamins. One's vitamin D, not made by plants, made by animals, such as yourself when you walk outside. It's a sunshine vitamin, right? Now, people are not getting adequate sunshine because they have a desk job or whatever. For whatever reason, may need to supplement with vitamin D. It's nothing really to do with your diet. And the other one that's not made by plants is vitamin B12. Not made by animals either, made by little microbes that blanket the earth. So, we used to get all the B12 we need drinking out of a mountain stream or well water or something, but now we chlorinate the water supply to kill off any bacteria. So don't get a lot of vitamin B12 in our water anymore. Don't get a lot of cholera either. That's a good thing that we live in a nice sanitary world. But because of our nice modern sanitary world, we need to get vitamin B12 from someplace. Our fellow great apes get all the B12 they need from bugs, dirt, and feces. I prefer supplements. And really the best reliable way to get B12 in the modern world is just take a supplement.
I always heard that being healthy was expensive. And once I made the transition, I had to plan my meals out. It may be inconvenient, but it's significantly cheaper. People are used to certain ways of living and you get accustomed to things and it makes you comfortable. Just like a home-cooked meal that your grandma used to make. Well, if you're vegan, you can't have that exact meal that grandma used to make, and then you feel like you're losing some of that comfort. So I do understand the difficulties there, but anything that's worth it's going to take some sacrifice, and it's your health. So you could buy new boobs, but you can't buy like a new heart. So you might as well keep your body nice. I see a lot of people spend like thousands of dollars on fixing up their like 67 Mustang, but won't spend like $4 on a kale shake because that's too expensive.
America is one of the most prosperous nations in the world. And yet we've never been sicker as a society. Right now, 1 out of every 3 Americans will die of heart disease. 1 out of every 3. 70% of Americans are obese or overweight. And they're predicting that by 2030, more than 30% of the population is going to be diabetic or pre-diabetic. And childhood obesity rates are through the roof. We're quickly moving towards 10 billion people. So what is going on? We need a better way to feed the planet. Our current system for feeding everybody, which is predominantly based on animal agriculture, is contributing to these diseases. Meanwhile, it's decimating our planet at an unfathomable rate. We're in the midst of this insane mass species extinction. The runoff from animal agriculture is creating these algal blooms in our oceans. Our waterways are polluted. It requires so much land, so much resources, so much water to raise these animals for food. It's truly unsustainable, and it's wreaking havoc on our planet. But I think it's imperative upon us to take personal responsibility for those choices, and as a culture, to innovate new ways to feed the planet. Because if we continue down this path, we're only going to get sicker, and we're destroying this one planet that we all share together. Meanwhile, we're creating massive amounts of suffering and violence through the way that we're treating these animals. There is nobody, regardless of your dietary proclivities, that's a fan of factory farming. It's so heartbreaking to know that this is how we're feeding everybody, and we really need to innovate and figure out new ways, more compassionate ways to treat ourselves, treat the planet, and treat the animals.
A lot of people are not aware that what you eat affects the ocean. Eating meat and supporting animal agriculture is one of the leading causes of ocean dead zones. I believe the reason why I've stuck with this lifestyle is because I love animals so much, and I believe that we don't have to harm animals to be healthy.
I've always thought that we had all the time in the world to fix all these problems and, inspire the world to be a little bit more conscious and, just be healthier. But, now I have a kid and he's going to grow up in this world. The environment is at a tipping point. It's just a mess. And having that kid just made me realize, we had to step up our game right now. We don't have time to be passive about this.
So this is our baby Noah, and he was born 6 weeks ago. And I guess our lives have changed dramatically since then, but to the better.
Yeah,
it's been really great. It's been a really amazing journey so far. He's a pretty calm, chilled baby, and he's born vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at the dairy industry, the baby cows being taken away from their moms, imagine, I just had this thought one day, imagining someone taking our baby away, how devastating that would be. So we have to do the best we can and do what matters the most. And to me, that is, saving our planet so that my kid and, all the generations to come have a nice place to live in.
John Venus no longer vegan. John Venus sadly no longer being vegan.
John Venus has quit being vegan.
John Venus is no longer vegan.
One of the major vegan fitness influencers just became an ex-vegan.
I'm not here to listen to your, arguments and to your opinions either. Nutrition itself is a very confusing and not really understood topic. We cannot, say for certain that 100% vegan diet is gonna be optimal for kids.
I can honestly say that I was shocked. John was someone who I looked up to ever since meeting him. Were his reasons valid? Should I reconsider my own thoughts on being vegan? It turns out that John wasn't the only person to leave veganism behind. Like, for example, Miley Cyrus and Ellen DeGeneres, who were both once vegan.
Congratulations, I am also vegan.
Miley Cyrus is now eating chicken on Instagram,
Eating fried chicken and my weight ain't around.
and Ellen started eating fish for no real reason after 8 years of being vegan. I wanted to learn about why this happens, so I sat down with psychologist Dr. Melanie Joy to hear about her take on the matter.
A recent study suggests that social pressure actually plays a huge role in recidivism and people no longer maintaining adherence to veganism. And this, of course, makes sense. For many vegans, becoming vegan is often one of the most inspiring experiences of their lives and one of the most empowering experiences of their lives. And nevertheless, it comes with certain challenges. People may find that they become vegan and they lack the social support. They may find that their relationships and communications start to break down. And this challenge can become even stronger when you're trying to communicate across ideological differences. In many places, it's still considered socially acceptable to talk about and to vegans in a way that would be considered completely inappropriate. Vegans, for example, often report that they're teased at the dinner table for their beliefs. They're teased for their core beliefs. Family members might dangle pieces of meat in front of the vegan and laugh at them, and then tell the vegan they have no sense of humor when they don't laugh along.
Whenever I'm cooking, I always make sure there are vegetarian options. They can make do, or they can fuck off.
I would have been vegan so much sooner if it wasn't for vegans. You ever met one, bro?
I want to talk to my kids for a minute, because 3 of my kids are vegans. I got news for you. I put meat in your baby's formula bottle when you ain't looking.
Sometimes it's pressure from authorities. Sometimes a vegan might, for example, not be feeling well, go to the doctor. Doctors might automatically assume that if you're vegan and you're not feeling well, then the problem has to do with your diet. And I've heard from many, many vegans that they felt pressured to revert back in order to manage whatever problem they might have been dealing with, whether it's a physical health problem or sometimes even a psychological problem that they may be dealing with.
A few months after John told the world that he was no longer vegan, he posted an apology video, as well as another video claiming that he would never leave veganism behind again.
You know, I just don't see myself ever changing again.
And to be honest, this only confused me further. Luckily, I was able to arrange a meeting with him to ask about why he had a change of heart.
The fact is that I went into this extreme fear paradigm. I bought into the pressure from, society, from other doctors, from some research that I came across. I pulled the trigger, so to speak, and decided that I was not going to feed my son a vegan diet. And because of that, I didn't feel comfortable, being vegan or telling the world that I was vegan myself. My son never went through any serious illnesses himself, so it was more a psychological thing rather than an immediate threat or health crisis. I changed my mind once again and went back to a lifestyle that I felt more in alignment with.
It was definitely reassuring to hear that John decided to go back to being vegan, until a few months later when I checked out his YouTube channel and found videos titled, "Is Eating Meat Helping Me Build Muscle?" and "How a Vegan Diet Can Ruin Your Health." So now he's eating meat? I came across one video that made me realize that John will most likely never call himself vegan again.
Catherine's dad just got out the rifle. He may have spotted something. So he spotted 3 animals. Now we're just trying to sneak up on them. So I'm super grateful for the whole opportunity, and obviously really thankful for the animal itself who gave his life to us. And that's a really important aspect that, most of us when we're eating food, we're not even thinking about where it came from. We're not even...
Personally, I'm not bothered at all when vegan influencers stop being vegan. Vegans are people, and people change over the course of a lifetime for a lot of different reasons. People's ideas change, people's relationships change, and that influences them. People's needs change, and this movement, the vegan movement, is a social justice movement. It's made up of many, many people. It's built on foundational values and ideas that are very important and very relevant and will continue to be so. One individual in this movement or a handful of individuals in this movement are not going to make or break the movement. The movement is bigger than 1 or 2 or even 100 influencers. Many vegans focus so much on, former vegans and former vegan influencers, when in fact that same energy could be used to raise awareness among people who are open to and receptive to the vegan message.
I realized that I myself had spent a lot of energy focusing on John and his journey, energy that could have been spent on my own journey and learning more about what it truly means to be vegan. I also realized that not all vegans represent the vegan movement, and that this is a movement made up of unique individuals from all around the world, all with their own story to tell. But at the same time, if John truly was only trying to protect the health of his son, I couldn't blame him. This made me wonder if feeding a vegan diet to kids is the right thing to do or not. So I sat down with the doctors to see what the science says.
Kids who are raised on a plant-based diet have huge advantages. First of all, they're going to live longer and they are much less likely to become obese. But their risk of diabetes is less. Their risk of heart disease is less. Their risk of things like asthma and other things that can affect other kids, dramatically less. It's the biggest gift that parents can give their kids, is to raise them on a healthy plant-based diet.
The largest, oldest association of nutrition professionals in the world, right? The American Dietetic Association. Their position paper, in fact, going back a number of position papers, they do want everyone in a couple of years. The last one, 2017, very clearly that even a strictly plant-based diet is appropriate for all stages of the life cycle, from pregnancy to infancy, childhood, adulthood, old age. The position statement was not only that safe, appropriate, but actually offers benefits in terms of reducing chronic disease risk.
The diseases of adulthood start in childhood. A heart attack has its roots when a child is actually in grade school. It starts with cholesterol particles that irritate the artery wall, and then it forms a little raised plaque. It's very small at first, just a little fatty streak. But by the time a kid is finishing high school, they may have even lost one of their arteries, just paved over by this process. It starts in the lumbar aorta, the arteries going to the lower back. And then after that, it hits the arteries to the heart and the arteries to the brain. But it starts very, very early. The good news is it can be reversed. It cannot be reversed by going to chicken and fish and skim milk, but it can be reversed by a plant-based diet.
People frown their face if they hear about a woman that gave her breast milk to another woman. But you eat and drink cow's milk. Like, just come on, just think about that for a second. You are drinking the milk of a mother cow. And you frown your face upon lactating women. I don't know about that. You know, when you're teaching all the kids these animals and how cute they are, and when you sing Old MacDonald Had a Farm, and you're just like, that nursery rhyme doesn't go Old MacDonald had a farm and then they slaughtered them. So then I started letting the kids understand what they are eating. Like, you know the little pig that we talk about? Yeah, that's that. And what is your favorite food that you like to eat? The buffalo wings that I make, and when Mommy makes French fries.
Yeah.
And do you like broccoli?
Yeah. That was my favorite. When my mom makes it juicy and it tastes like chips, I love it.
What can you tell them? What is your favorite salad?
Kale salad. No, what's it called?
Yeah, you said it
kale
right.
salad.
The one with the lemon on it?
Yeah, the lemon dress.
Future generations are gonna look at us like, dang, they used to eat meat. They used to eat dead animals.
We don't make hardcore rules about what they can and they can't eat. We just try to educate them to the best of our ability. So things like going to the farmer's market, going to the supermarket are all homeschool experiments and opportunities to try to teach our kids why we're choosing this food and not this food, and why, you know, maybe your friends have that, but we don't. And my wife's such a good cook that they prefer her food, so that's the way that they eat. And when they go to a friend's house, we don't say, you can't eat that, or you know, I'm not gonna be the dad who says, hey, when you go to a birthday party, you can't have a piece of cake. We respect their sovereignty as human beings, and they're free to make that choice. And then we talk about it on the way home from the birthday party. If they have a stomach ache, well, maybe let's talk about why you have a stomach ache. I'm less concerned in them having that piece of pizza or that piece of cake at the birthday party than I am in their daily habits 5, 10, 15 years from now.
You need to unlearn a lot of stuff. You need to challenge your current beliefs, because the way that you have been taught is not necessarily the whole truth. Like, it's often been in someone's interest, and often there's a financial interest.
I think it does have to do with big marketing. For example, you know, you have animal agriculture. They need to get these cows moving. And so the best way to do that is to say, hey, you want to stay fit and lean, you need protein.
You're trying to overcome a default setting that has been implanted since birth. Milk does a body good, you know, beef is what's for dinner, and now you're coming in and you're telling me like these foods aren't healthy? To deprogram someone from something like that requires a tremendous amount of patience and time and education. Meanwhile, we have so much conflicting information. You know, the internet is amazing. It gives us access to answers about everything we could possibly ask ourselves about. And a lot of the science is compromised through the way that it's funded and structured, et cetera.
What cigarette do you smoke, doctor? Tens of thousands of doctors in all branches of medicine, in all parts of the country, were asked that question.
Time out for many men of medicine usually means just long enough to enjoy a cigarette.
And because they know
in my lifetime, you could go in the doctor's office and there'd be a blue haze, and you go into the exam room, either you or the doctor both were smoking. And we look back now and we say, is that the craziest thing you ever saw or heard? And I mean, no one would disagree with that. Yet I go in the CCU and what's on a patient's tray after they just had a heart attack? You know, bacon and eggs. You go down and someone just had half their colon taken out because they had colon cancer, and what's on the tray, right? Ham and cheese sandwich. And we know good and well that those kinds of foods cause, or, you know, one of the root causes of these chronic diseases. You know, one day we're going to look back and say, can you believe, you know, we used to feed our patients bacon and eggs and ham and cheese? You know, we can all have our own opinions, but we can't have our own facts. And the facts are that a plant-based diet is really the optimum diet for human health.
Getting the word out to other doctors and having them tell their patients about it, I think there's a couple things. But I think one is that it seems too good to be true. It seems like, oh yeah, sure, just making a change in what you eat is going to reverse disease. That sounds a little crazy, you know, but we see it here every day. And there's studies to show that that is the case. To get people to change around their lifestyle, you know, to get a patient to actually start eating differently after, who knows, it could be 20 years, it could be 75 years of eating one way. That's really tough to do. And so it's easier for doctors. You know, I even see this in my practice. It's easier to say, hey, take this pill every day than it is to say, I want you to eat completely differently than what you're used to.
And look, it's your body, your choice. You want to go smoke cigarettes, go bungee jumping, do whatever you want, right? But as physicians, our duty is to share with you the best available balance of evidence. You know, someone in your circumstance that does X, Y, and Z will suffer these predictable consequences, likely. And so they can give you the options. Yes, you can do drugs, you can do, and this is the benefit and the risks, and here's what we can do procedurally, surgically, and then there's lifestyle approaches. It's such a patronizing attitude to decide for the patients themselves and not even give them the opportunity.
It's not what does the plant-based industry look like in the future. It's what are these meat factories going to do now? Because it is a huge disruptor right now.
There's mainstream awareness about this diet, and you see every day more and more athletes experimenting with it. And not just skinny ultra endurance guys, but MMA fighters and NBA players and NFL players and NHL players and every type of athlete, from strength, agility, speed, you know, athletes that really rely on power and quickness, not just long distance runners. And they're experiencing the same thing that I experienced. And I think that's super exciting.
I just feel so good eating a vegan diet, and I know that it has sustained me this far, and I've always felt very energetic and strong. If I could still be at the top of my game and eat this way, then why not? I'm benefiting animals, myself, and the environment by eating this way, so I'm all for it.
If you care about humanity, if you care about the planet, if you care about the animals, if you care about yourself, adopting a plant-based lifestyle is the single most powerful, most positively impactful choice that you can possibly make.
As more and more people realize that eating animals is not a necessity, eating animals is taking on a whole new ethical dimension, and people are becoming increasingly ethically uncomfortable with this behavior.
And the fact that also has all these side benefits, that a heart-healthy diet is a brain-healthy diet and a kidney-healthy diet and a liver-healthy diet. It's the same diet, one diet to rule them all. That should be the diet we should all eat.
People often say like an individual can't have an impact, and it's easy to just point fingers at politics and stuff like that. And what I thought as well, like, okay, it's just a drop in the ocean at the start, but then I realized how many times a day do I make a choice? How many times a day do I eat? And how that accumulates. And then not only that, what I have seen by just leading by example, how massive a difference you can make.
I tell people, going plant-based is like having sex. If you didn't enjoy it, you weren't doing it right. Because when you do plant-based eating properly, you're going to be healthier, you're going to have more energy, you're going to feel better, you're going to be bouncing off the walls. You feel so good.
Once we understand what foods do in our body and that their power is bigger than we had imagined before, we realize instead of just gradually declining through life, when I'm 30, I'm way overweight. When I'm 40, I'm taking medications. When I'm 50, I can't really play tennis anymore. You're on a slow decline. Instead, you can really live. You put the power of food to work, and you can stay healthy. And you can play with your kids and your grandkids, and you can really live life. We're not going to live forever, but while we're alive, let's live well, and foods will allow us to do that.
Next time on Planet Vegan.
People don't do what they do because they're inherently bad. That's not the reason why. So we never have the chance to actually question the way that we live, because from the moment we're born, these are the values we're given.
The first time that I walked up close, there was a pig looking back at me through the porthole, and it was the most unbelievable experience.
Once you have seen the footage of what actually is happening to these individuals in animal factories, you can never unsee that.
You can summarize what we're trying to do in 10 simple words. Find your voice, find some friends, and fight like hell.
Seeker outward. But the seeker who, like a patient rider, gently reins in the mind, brings it back to the inner stillness again and again. And through that perseverance and devotion, the soul begins to ascend, shedding the layers of ignorance that obscure its divine nature. It is worth the effort, for to live in the consciousness of God is to be free from the bondage of fear, suffering, and death. It is to reclaim the birthright of eternal bliss that has always been within us, hidden behind the veil of restless thoughts and worldly desires. The kingdom is not far away. It is not in some distant heaven, but closer than the breath, nearer than the heartbeat, and entirely within you. How can we understand or describe such a state? To attempt to put words on it can only go so far, because we must experience it ourselves to truly know. But some might consider that it is a state of merging with divine unity, a state of pure being, beyond thought, beyond sensation, where the soul knows itself as a reflection of God's eternal light. It is the fulfillment of the soul's longing, the end of all seeking, the answer to every prayer. The Pharisees' pride and the publican's humility are not just characters in a story. They are reflections of the inner battle within all of us. The ego, like the Pharisee, seeks recognition and validation from the world, while the higher parts of the personality, like the publican, yearns for divine grace, though acknowledging its shortcomings. To enter this kingdom, one must let go of the ego's demands and surrender to the infinite love of the Creator. This surrender is not weakness, but the ultimate strength, for it aligns the seeker with the omnipotent power of God. This kingdom is not an abstract idea, but a living reality. It is the cosmic consciousness from which all creation arises, the source of all joy and wisdom. It is the divine presence that sustains every particle of matter, every vibration of joy, and every thought of the mind. It is the boundless love that flows through all things, uniting them in a harmonious dance of light and shadow. This journey inward is the essence of Yeshua's teachings. When he said, "I am the door, by me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved," he was not speaking of a physical gate or even of his physical body, but the doorway of consciousness that leads to God. That thing we call Christ consciousness, or in other languages, the eternal consciousness, or known in India as Kutastha Chaitanya. This door is within every person, a spiritual center that can be accessed by settling the mind, calming the senses, and going within. When we touch this place, the endless joy of spirit becomes alive within us. To be very clear, and contrary to mainstream opinion, this journey is not reserved for saints or mystics. So many people are waiting for Jesus to show up physically and save them. But to do so without making any inner effort to become better ultimately can become an obfuscation of responsibility that inhibits growth and development of the soul's connection with the spirit. Yet, it is the birthright of every soul and the promise of Yeshua to all who seek the kingdom of God. The one who perseveres, who knocks at the inner door with sincerity and devotion, will find it open. The peace and joy of God are not distant rewards, but present realities, waiting to be realized within the depths of one's own being. The kingdom of God is not a distant heaven, but an inner reality, not found by observation or external rules, but by interiorizing the mind and awakening the soul. This is the path of salvation, the way to eternal joy. The kingdom of God is within you, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be lived. When exploring the deeper truth behind biblical stories, one often encounters something that disrupts conventional understandings of the Christian faith. Beneath the familiar narrative lies traces of something far more ancient, the echoes of a world that existed before. Thousands of years before Christianity emerged, the ancient world was already filled with stories of divine beings who were born of virgins, performed miracles, died for the sins of humanity, and rose again. In other words, Jesus was not the first. Long before the New Testament was written, the Mediterranean was saturated with spiritual traditions known as the mysteries. These were the dominant religions of their time, and at their heart was a powerful archetype, the dying and resurrecting God. Among the most prominent were Osiris in Egypt, Dionysus in Greece, Mithras in Persia, Attis in Asia Minor, Asclepius in Greece, Tammuz in Mesopotamia, Adonis in Syria, and Serapis in Hellenistic Egypt. For thousands of years, these figures were revered not only as deities, but also as symbols of the human soul's journey through transformation and enlightenment. But these mysteries were not like mainstream religions are today, because at the heart of these traditions were a culture that offered initiates a direct, personal connection to the divine within them. Now here's what's curious. The stories of these godmen followed strikingly similar patterns. They were often born of virgins, performed miracles, died sacrificial deaths, and were resurrected to offer salvation to their followers. What's more, they were each considered, to their followers, as the Son of God. To these traditions, though, these myths were not meant to be taken as literal history, but as allegories containing profound spiritual teachings. Initiates participated in elaborate ceremonies, including rites of purification, symbolic meals, and dramatic reenactments of the god's death and resurrection. These rituals aimed to lead participants through a transformative experience, offering them spiritual rebirth and a glimpse of immortality. In essence, the wisdom was that by following in the meaningful story of the death and resurrection of their deity, the individual would undergo the same within, the death of their ego and the rebirth into embodying the light of their soul. One of the most famous examples is the story of Osiris, the Egyptian god who was murdered by his brother Set, dismembered, and then later was put back together and resurrected. Osiris later was killed a second time and became the ruler of the underworld and a symbol for eternal life. His story was enacted in rituals that symbolized the initiate's own death and rebirth. Encoded in the myth was the idea that Osiris being dismembered was a reflection of how each of us have become fragmented from our inner unity, and being remembered was the process of returning to wholeness, literally remembering who we are. After dying the second time, Osiris, while in the underworld, performed a ceremony with Isis, his wife who was still in a physical body, and she conceived their son, Horus. This was the first account of the virgin birth in history, thousands of years before Jesus. Similarly, in the Greek mysteries of Dionysus, the god was torn apart and reborn, representing the cyclical nature of life and the potential for spiritual renewal. And in the Persian mysteries of Mithras, initiates underwent a series of trials and symbolic baptisms to cleanse their sins and achieve spiritual enlightenment. This begins to raise some red flags as we consider the revelation of history against what is known of Jesus Christ, as we find consistent matches across the board to his character traits, which seems to suggest that Yeshua's story is not an original one. Jesus' birth was heralded by a star, and later he was known for turning water into wine, healing the sick, and raising the dead, all wonders previously attributed to figures like Dionysus and Asclepius. But the similarities don't end there. We might also consider the Last Supper, and the pivotal moment where Jesus offers bread and wine as symbols of his body and blood. This practice also echoes the rituals of the mysteries, where participants shared a symbolic meal to commune with the Son of God. In the Eleusinian mysteries of Greece, initiates consumed a potion made of barley and mint, symbolizing the body of the goddess Demeter. And in the Mithraic mysteries, bread and wine were consecrated and consumed in a ritual that closely resembles the Christian Eucharist. We might also here consider baptism, which has its roots in the mysteries. In Christianity, baptism is a rite of purification and initiation, symbolizing the washing away of sins and the beginning of a new spiritual life. In the mysteries of Mithras and the Egyptian mysteries of Isis and Osiris, initiates underwent ritual cleansings with water to prepare for their spiritual journeys. These baptisms often included symbolic elements like the sprinkling of holy water or full immersion, representing death and rebirth. Even in the teachings of Jesus, we find parallels. Many of the ideas attributed to him have older origins, stretching back hundreds or even thousands of years. For example, the idea of union with the divine was central to the teachings of Pythagoras and Plato, both initiates of the mysteries. The concept of the Logos was prevalent in Greece for centuries before Christ, particularly in the works of Heraclitus, and later refined by Stoic philosophers. Themes of divine incarnation can also be found in Krishna, in Shaushant, and in Horus. Even the emphasis on an inner kingdom, self-realization, and salvation through knowledge has deep roots in Hermetic and other traditions long predating Christianity. But several major questions arise from this. First, where do all these stories come from? How did Christianity actually come to be? And was there even a Jesus at all? Let's start by answering the first question first. It would seem the uniting theme of these stories derived from the ancient world's understanding of the heavens. Long before Christianity, civilizations recognized the sun as the giver of life, the source of warmth, light, and sustenance. As early as 10,000 BC, cultures carved solar symbols into stone, depicting the sun's vital role in their existence. But they did not merely observe the sun. They anthropomorphized it, creating myths that aligned its movements with the human experience of birth, death, and rebirth. The zodiac, one of the oldest conceptual frameworks in human history, provided a celestial backdrop to these myths. As the sun moved throughout the sky over the course of a year, it appeared to pass through 12 constellations. These constellations, known as the zodiac, were seen as cosmic markers of the sun's journey, representing different phases of life, seasonal transitions, and spiritual transformation. The 12 signs became personified as deities, each embodying the qualities of the period in which they ruled. Aquarius, the water bearer, represented the life-giving rains of spring, while Leo, the lion, symbolized the peak of summer's power. Because the sun was the sustainer of life, it was often depicted as a divine figure, the son of God in many traditions. In Egypt, this figure was Horus, the solar deity who was born of a virgin, marked by a star in the east and followed by 3 kings. His adversary was Set, the personification of night and darkness, whom he vanquished each morning, only to be overcome again each evening. This cycle of struggle and rebirth mirrored the movement of the sun, a theme that repeated across numerous traditions. And as we have seen, these mythological structures did not belong to one single culture, as there are many ancient sons of God who shared characteristics in narrative structures, such as the miraculous births, 12 followers, the performance of great works, and an ultimate resurrection. Each of these figures is an archetype of the sun's cycle, embodying its journey through the zodiac and its annual death and rebirth at the winter solstice. Even the narrative of Jesus aligns perfectly with this ancient solar allegory. The star in the east that heralds his birth is Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, which on December 24th, along with the 3 stars of Orion's belt, known as the 3 kings, point directly to the location of the sunrise on December 25th, the date of Christ's birth. The constellation Virgo, meaning virgin in Latin, aligns with this event, reinforcing the allegory of the virgin birth. Bethlehem itself translates to house of bread, a clear reference to Virgo, whose symbol is a maiden holding a sheaf of wheat. The pattern continues with Christ's death and resurrection. Each year, the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky on December 22nd, appearing motionless for 3 days before beginning its ascent again on December 25th. This death and resurrection of the sun became the foundation for myths of dying and resurrecting gods, reinforcing the idea of spiritual renewal and salvation. The 12 disciples of Christ correspond to the 12 zodiac signs, just as Mithras had 12 companions and Horus had 12 followers. Naturally, perceiving this truth calls a great deal into question. Did Jesus exist at all? Or are all of these stories just that? Stories. We can see clearly that the ancient people had a deep, universal reverence for the cycles of nature. But if their wisdom is to be considered, that doesn't have to suggest that they are entirely removed from any embodied reality. As the wisdom of the great Hermes Trismegistus writes, "'Tis true without line, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracle of one only thing." It can be that a physical Yeshua was incarnated, reflecting that which is above, here below on the earth plane. It may also be that some of the stories of other deities were attributed to him, but that doesn't necessarily mean he didn't also do some of, or all of, those things ascribed to him. While challenging these orthodox traditions so heavily will be seen as blasphemy to many, what we may all find is that part of the magic is in the mystery. However, where did Christianity actually come from? In order to answer this question, we have to consider the state of the world 2,000 years ago. But what we find might be shocking to many. So especially with a subject as sensitive as this, please have your own experience, do your own research, and decide for yourself what you choose to believe in. The great city of Alexandria, founded by Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC, became one of the most remarkable melting pots of the ancient world. Here, the intellectual traditions of Greece, the mystical rites of Egypt, and the religious convictions of Judaism all met in an unparalleled fusion of ideas. Unlike the insular world of Judea, Alexandria was a city where cultures collided, blended, and gave birth to new spiritual movements. The Jewish community in Alexandria was vast. Some scholars estimate that up to half the original population of the city were Jews. Unlike their more conservative brethren in Judea, these Hellenized Jews had abandoned Aramaic and Hebrew in favor of Greek, the universal language of the empire. They lived alongside Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans, rubbing shoulders with philosophers, mystics, and initiates of the mysteries. While traditional Jewish laws forbade participation in pagan festivals and rituals, many younger Jews found themselves drawn to the sophisticated world of Hellenistic culture. The city's greatest treasure was its legendary Library of Alexandria, which housed hundreds of thousands of scrolls and sought to collect all the knowledge of the ancient world. Here, scholars studied Plato, Pythagoras, and the Egyptian mysteries, drawing parallels between Greek philosophy and Jewish thought. It was in this setting that the Jewish scriptures were translated into Greek in what became the Septuagint, a work that subtly infused Hebrew beliefs with Platonic and Stoic ideas. One man at the heart of this fusion was Philo of Alexandria, a Jewish philosopher who sought to reconcile the Torah with Greek philosophy. Philo was not a traditionalist. He openly embraced the idea that the Jewish scriptures could be read allegorically, much like the myths of the mystery traditions. He identified Yahweh with Plato's concept of the One, and equated Moses with Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary founder of Egyptian mysticism. In doing so, he laid the groundwork for a mystical interpretation of Judaism that would influence later Gnostic and Orthodox Christian thought. Yet Philo was not alone. Among the Jews of Alexandria, a new sect was forming, the Therapeutae, a group that lived a monastic life near Lake Mareotis, south of the city. They practiced a form of ascetic Judaism that bore striking similarities to the mystery traditions. Philo himself described them as being initiated into the mysteries of the sanctified life, and compared their spiritual practices to those of the followers of Dionysus. They sought direct experience of the divine, much like the initiates of the mysteries of Osiris and Eleusis. These Jews, raised in a city saturated with myth, ritual, and philosophy, did not see a sharp divide between Judaism and the religions around them. Some openly rewrote Jewish scripture in the style of Greek plays, like the playwright Ezekiel, who adapted the Exodus story into a Greek tragedy in the style of Euripides. Others claimed that Greek philosophers had borrowed their wisdom from Moses, an effort to elevate Judaism to the intellectual prestige of Greek thought. Among those who sought deeper spiritual knowledge were the Essenes, an ascetic Jewish sect that shared many similarities with both the mystery schools and later Christian movements. While commonly associated with the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Qumran community, some scholars believe the Therapeutae of Alexandria might have been an Essene offshoot, adopting Hellenistic ideas while maintaining their rigorous devotion to purification, prophecy, and communal living. Their emphasis on baptism, angelic visions, and an apocalyptic worldview bears striking resemblance to early Christian themes, suggesting that in Alexandria, Essenes may have been key intermediaries between Jewish mysticism and the broader religious fusion that would shape Christianity. It is within this world that Christianity as we know it began to take shape. In Alexandria, the idea of a Jewish mystery religion was not unthinkable, it was inevitable. Here, Judaism was already merging with the mystery traditions, the philosophical allegories of Plato, and the cosmic speculations of Stoicism. For the young Jews of Alexandria, the mysteries were not a foreign concept, but a part of life for them too. As they sought to reconcile their faith with the wisdom of the ages, they laid a foundation for something new. For it was in those early days of Christianity that a form of it existed unlike anything we are familiar with today, that of Gnosticism. The term gnosis comes from the Greek word for knowledge, but it is not knowledge in the conventional sense. Gnosis is an experiential understanding, a deep, intuitive insight into the nature of existence and the divine. To the Gnostics, salvation did not come through blind faith or obedience to a church hierarchy, but through inner transformation and the discovery of the divine spark within. It was about awakening to the truth of who we are and discovering the divine spark within each of us. This knowledge, they believed, had the power to liberate the soul from ignorance and reunite it with its divine source. For the early Gnostic Christians, the figure of Yeshua was central to this process of awakening. Their understanding of Jesus differed significantly from the Orthodox portrayal. To the Gnostics, Jesus was not merely a historical figure or a sacrificial savior, but a divine teacher and revealer of mysteries. His role was to guide humanity out of spiritual ignorance and into the light of Gnosis, true knowing. The Gospel of Thomas captures this perspective beautifully with Jesus' words, "The kingdom of God is inside you and all around you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will realize that you are children of the living Father." This focus on self-knowledge as the path to divine understanding is a hallmark of the Gnostic tradition. The Gospels of Mary, Philip, and Truth, along with texts like the Pistis Sophia, emphasize the transformative power of going within. The Gnostic journey is often described as an ascent, a process of moving through layers of ignorance and illusion to uncover the divine reality that lies within. This is not a journey of the intellect, but of the soul, guided by wisdom, reflection, and spiritual practice. The Secret Gospel of Mark provides a powerful allegory for this transformative process. In this text, Jesus raises a young man from the dead and later initiates him into the mystery of the kingdom of God during the same night. This narrative reinterprets resurrection as a spiritual awakening rather than just a physical miracle. The story parallels the account of Lazarus in the Gospel of John, which may also have originated as an allegory for initiation. When Thomas declared, "Let us also go and die with him," the statement can be understood as an invitation to undergo the symbolic death and rebirth of an initiatory process. These stories convey the essence of Gnosis, a mystical awakening to one's divine nature. At the heart of the Gospel of Gnosis is the concept of the divine spark. The Gnostics believed that every soul carries a fragment of the divine, a spark of light that connects us to the higher realms. This spark is often buried beneath layers of material existence and societal conditioning, but it can be uncovered through Gnosis. Once this divine essence is recognized, the individual experiences a profound transformation, a rebirth into spiritual awareness. The mystical framework of Gnosis is deeply rooted in the understanding of the self. The Gnostics taught that each human being is composed of a mortal, false self called the Eidolon and an immortal, true self called the daemon, or the soul. Now, the word Eidolon comes from the Greek word meaning phantom, image, or idol, and was considered synonymous with the ego, representing the external, conditioned identity shaped by material existence and societal expectations. The word daemon comes from the Greek word meaning divine spirit, guiding force, or lesser deity, essentially describing the pure soul, which is an individualized, lesser form of the fullness of spirit. Interestingly, even the word daemon was later transformed and, quite literally, demonized, giving us the word demon today. Isn't that interesting? The concept of the soul was quite literally changed into a demonic or evil force. We might come back to this later, but for now, the purpose of Gnostic initiation was to transcend identification with the ego and awaken to the divine nature of the soul. This process of self-realization was encapsulated in the ancient inscription at Delphi, "Know thyself." Through this inner journey, the seeker uncovered the divine spark, realizing their oneness with the divine source and attaining liberation. The Gnostics had many frameworks to understand the nature of the human. One of the ways was with this, with three interwoven aspects: the body, the soul, and the spirit. To illustrate this, they used the image of three concentric rings, a diagram which is familiar to several ancient teachings, which we will identify briefly. The writings of Plato describe that the lost kingdom of Atlantis was also set up in a model of three concentric circles, a concept we first explored in the Spirit Science Human History movie. And further, across all of these mystery traditions, they viewed the mysteries themselves as established on a three-ring basis. The outside ring were the uninitiated, who viewed their stories not as mystical allegories, but as historical fact to be taken very literally. The middle ring was for those who were initiated into the inner journey, reflecting on the mystic wisdom as an inner experience. and the innermost ring was a state of being, complete spiritual enlightenment or embodiment of the Christ consciousness. But as mentioned, these rings also identified three aspects of consciousness between individuality and unity with all things. The outer ring was the body, the physis. This is our physical form, the material aspect of existence that interacts with the external world. It is the most tangible, yet the least essential part of our identity. The middle ring, the soul or psyche. This represents our inner world, our thoughts, emotions, the psychological experience. Unlike the body, which is transient, the soul is an intermediary between the material and the divine. Were we to connect this concept to one of our previous discussions, we might find this level relative to the astral body. At the core of our being lies pneuma, or spirit, which is pure consciousness. It is the eternal, divine essence that transcends physical and psychological limitations. And this level may also be identified with the causal body. The Gnostics saw these layers as different levels of awareness that correspond to different states of being. In deep sleep, we exist as pure spirit, unconscious of both body and soul. In dreams, we experience reality through the psyche, disconnected from physical form. When awake, we inhibit all three levels simultaneously, often mistaking the body for our true self. To the initiated, they saw that the body actually existed within the soul, and that the soul existed within consciousness, an idea that is becoming more popular again today with the emergence of quantum mechanics. If the body is within the soul, then we are not physical beings who have a consciousness. Rather, we are consciousness experiencing itself through a temporary physical form. This perspective aligns with the idea that reality itself is a projection of a deeper, hidden divine structure, what the Gnostics called the pleroma, the fullness of God. Here we find the great unity back to the core ideas found earlier in our series about the nature of Christ consciousness. At the highest level of reality, there is one ultimate consciousness, but this divine presence manifests in infinite forms. This means that our perceived individuality is an illusion. We are all expressions of the same divine source. This idea is reflected through a powerful teaching found within the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus says, "When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, then you will enter the kingdom." The goal of Gnostic practice was to remember this unity, to break free from the illusion of separation, and recognize that all things are interconnected manifestations of the divine. The illusion of separation is what leads to suffering. We mistake the ego, the personality, and even the body for who we are, forgetting that at the core of our being, we are a part of something eternal and infinite. This is why Jesus, in Gnostic texts, appears in different forms to different people. He's not a single historical figure, but a representation of the divine presence that takes different shapes depending on the perception of the seeker. Now, the origins of Gnosticism are as mysterious as the tradition itself. Some scholars trace its roots to pre-Christian Jewish mysticism, while others see influences from Greek philosophy, particularly the works of Plato. And as we've previously discussed, it is most likely both. What is clear though is that in the early days, Gnosticism had become a very significant force within the early Christian movement, offering a radically different interpretation of the faith. One of the most remarkable aspects of Gnosticism is its inclusivity. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of the Orthodox Church, Gnostic communities often treated men and women as equals, allowing women to take on leadership roles. This egalitarian approach is evident in texts like the Gospel of Mary, which portrays Mary Magdalene as a central figure in Jesus' inner circle and a key interpreter of his teachings. This emphasis on equality and individual spiritual empowerment made Gnosticism particularly appealing to those marginalized by traditional religious structures. Yet, another character in Christian history must be analyzed with great depth, but in so doing, it changes a lot of what we think we know about the religion today. The Apostle Paul is one of the most influential figures in Christian history, credited with shaping much of the theology that defines the faith today. Yet beneath the surface of his epistles lies a figure who may have stood for a very different vision of Christ than the one most of us know today. As we all know, Paul's letters, the earliest Christian text we have, predate the Gospels by several decades. Written between approximately 50 and 60 CE, these epistles reveal a vision of Christianity that is strikingly different from the later, more narrative-focused accounts of Jesus' life. Paul rarely mentions the historical details of Yeshua's ministry. Instead, his focus is on the mystical significance of Christ, his death and resurrection as a cosmic event that transcends time and space. Paul often speaks of Christ in you, emphasizing the indwelling of the divine within each believer, and his words resonate with the Gnostic ideas of discovering the divine spark within. In his letters to the Galatians, Paul writes, "I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me." Such statements suggest a spiritual rather than literal understanding of Christ's presence and the believer's transformation. For the Gnostics, this inner awakening was the true path of salvation, a perspective that aligns closely with Paul's mystical language. The ultimate realization in Gnostic spirituality is that Christ is not a man, but a state of being. In the Gnostic tradition, to achieve gnosis is to recognize the Christ within oneself. This is why some Gnostic texts boldly declare that a true initiate is no longer a Christian, but a Christ. The idea was not to worship Jesus as an external savior, but to become Christ through enlightenment. Paul's letters hint at this deeper meaning, though it was later buried under church dogma. He writes, "Christ in you, the hope of glory," emphasizing that salvation is an inner transformation rather than an external event. Likewise, in the Gospel of Philip, Jesus states, "You saw the Spirit, you became the Spirit. You saw the Christ, you became Christ." This was the essence of early Christian initiation, the awakening of the divine consciousness within each person. Furthermore, Paul's teachings on the powers and the principalities, spiritual forces that govern the material world, bear similarities to Gnostic cosmology. The Gnostics believed that the physical realm was the creation of a lesser, flawed deity, the demiurge, and that true salvation lay in transcending this material existence. While Paul does not explicitly adopt this dualistic worldview, his emphasis on the spiritual struggle against these powers hints at an esoteric understanding of reality. But more so, Paul's relationship with the Gnostics is further complicated by the church's later efforts to co-opt his writings for orthodox purposes. Some of the letters attributed to Paul, such as the pastoral epistles, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus, have been identified by modern scholars as later forgeries, written to counter Gnostic influence and reinforce church hierarchy. Additionally, the Pauline epistles were heavily edited and interpreted through an orthodox lens, obscuring potential Gnostic elements. Yet, traces of his mystical vision remain. One of Paul's most enigmatic statements say in the original Greek, "We speak Sophia among the initiates." The term Sophia, meaning wisdom, was central to Gnostic thought, often personified as a divine feminine figure and the spiritual counterpart to the masculine Christ. Yet in Orthodox traditions, this passage is often translated as, "We speak the wisdom of God among the mature." Yet, returning to his original words, who was this Sophia, and what role did she play in the story of Christianity? It would seem the answer is, it's bigger than any of us really know. In the earliest days of Christianity, the masculine Christ had a feminine counterpart, wisdom. In the beginning, she danced through creation. She was there before the stars, before the earth, before time itself. A force of life moving in harmony with the dynamic masculine principle, rooted in the foundations of existence itself. The ancients called her Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. For the early Christians, she was a radiant beacon of insight and divine understanding. But her voice, once central to their sacred traditions, was silenced. This is her story. Sophia, a name that means wisdom in Greek, was revered by the first Christians as the feminine face of the divine. In their mystical writings, the Gnostics spoke of Sophia as both the source of divine knowledge and the companion of Christ. Together they formed a sacred union, embodying the balance of masculine and feminine energies in the cosmos. And this divine feminine expression was present and revered in their beliefs as much as the masculine Christ. For instance, the act of communion was not just a remembrance of Christ's passion, but also a celebration of Sophia's wisdom. They prayed to her, asking, "Come, hidden mother, come, you who are made manifest in your works, and give joy and rest to those who are bound to you." Sophia's presence was woven into every aspect of their spiritual practice. Priests and priestesses would invoke her name, and wine symbolizing her blood was shared among initiates. These rituals emphasized partnership spirituality, recognizing both men and women as equal reflections of the divine. For a long time, depictions of Sophia persisted in Christian art, particularly in the Eastern Orthodox tradition. In the Hagia Sophia, the Holy Wisdom Cathedral in Istanbul, we see a tribute to her enduring influence. The name itself honors Sophia, the divine wisdom that early Christians cherished. But over time, her presence became symbolic rather than devotional, her story hidden beneath layers of patriarchal theology. Her name lived on, but her role as an active divine force was diminished. The rediscovery of the Gnostic texts in the 20th century reignited interest in Sophia and her teachings. Among these texts, the Sophia of Jesus Christ and the Pistis Sophia reveal a rich and complex narrative about the relationship between Yeshua and Sophia. These writings portray her as an integral part of the spiritual journey, guiding initiates towards enlightenment and unity with the divine. In these texts, the divine pairing work together to bring salvation, not through blind faith, but through the awakening of inner wisdom. And that is the story of their mystical marriage, the divine union of the masculine and feminine aspects of creation. The Gnostic texts reveal the centrality of this mystical marriage. In the Sophia of Jesus Christ, Jesus refers to Sophia as his companion and emphasizes her role in guiding humanity towards wisdom and self-knowledge. This relationship was not merely symbolic. It was seen as a cosmic truth, a reflection of the unity that underlies all existence. Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, was both the source and the goal of the spiritual journey. Now, as mentioned, this mystical marriage was celebrated in the rituals and sacraments of the early Christians. The Eucharist, for example, was not solely a remembrance of Yeshua's sacrifice, but also a celebration of Sophia's wisdom. Wine, symbolizing Sophia's blood, was offered alongside bread, representing Jesus' body. These elements were consumed in a sacred meal that united participants with the divine couple. The prayers of the Gnostic Christians often invoked both Jesus and Sophia, recognizing their partnership as essential to spiritual awakening. In the Gospel of Philip, one of the texts discovered in the Nag Hammadi library, Sophia is described as the mother of the angels and the bride of Christ. Her narrative is one of profound spiritual significance, where she seeks to restore balance to a world fractured by duality. But here's something very interesting. Throughout history, we see several versions of Sophia's story, as she exists both as the cosmic mother and as an incarnated human who for a time falls from grace. In the Pistis Sophia, one of the most significant Gnostic texts, Sophia's story unfolds in intricate detail. She is depicted as a divine being who becomes trapped in the lower realms of existence, known as chaos, due to her desire to know the unknowable light of the Father. This yearning leads her to fall from the pleroma, the realm of divine fullness, into the material world dominated by the archons, the rulers of the physical dimension. These malevolent beings, jealous of her light and devotion to the true light, deceive her by creating a false, glittering light that lures her into their domain. Mistaking this false light for the true light, Sophia descends, and the archons steal her light power and bind her to their realm. In her exile, Sophia undergoes profound suffering and degradation. She is subjected to various forms of abuse and exploitation by the archons, symbolizing the soul's entrapment within the material world. In her longing for wholeness and return to the light, she seeks comfort in the wrong places, turning towards lesser beings, false lights, and even wicked men who promise salvation but instead use, manipulate, and violate her further. These encounters deepen her sorrow, reflecting the soul's search for healing in illusions that only perpetuate pain. It is only after exhausting every worldly refuge, betrayed time and time again, that she cries out in sincere repentance to the divine. Moved by her cries, the higher realms respond, and God sends Yeshua, reflecting the Logos, to rescue her, restore her light, and guide her back to the fullness of her origin. As Sophia ascends through the spiritual realms, she is repeatedly challenged by dark forces that seek to pull her back into chaos. Yeshua acts as her guide and protector, offering her teachings and revealing mysteries that restore her divine knowledge. Along this journey, Sophia's redemption becomes a metaphor for the spiritual awakening of humanity. Her ascent through the spheres symbolizes the soul's gradual return to its divine origin, guided by wisdom and grace. In a way, Sophia's dual aspect, both as cosmic mother and incarnated human, further reflects how we see Jesus both incarnated as human and also a reflection of the cosmic Father. The journey of Sophia and her redemption mirrors the individual's spiritual journey. As Sophia descends into chaos and rises again through the guidance of Christ, so too does the human soul navigate the challenges of the material world, striving to reconnect with its divine source. To this aspect of the narrative, Sophia represents the material body and Christ the soul, and the uniting each of them is the mystical marriage, a transformative process that leads to enlightenment and self-realization. Yet, as we know, there is no one in the Gospels named Sophia, who represents an archetypal force of the feminine, as the Gnostics were very mystical and allegorical in their understanding. However, there is an expression of Sophia embodied in the Gospels, something even many Christians have long speculated about. The Gnostic Gospel of Philip provides a striking glimpse into the intimate relationship between Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, who is often associated as the embodiment of Sophia. This text describes a moment that upset some of the disciples. It says, "The companion of the Savior is Mary Magdalene. The Savior loved her more than all the disciples, and he kissed her often on the mouth." This expression of intimacy was both physical and symbolic, representing the union of the divine masculine and feminine forces that shaped the cosmos. In the mystic channelings called the Sophia Code, as well as the Magdalene Manuscript, Mary Magdalene herself further shares a story about how she served Yeshua's ministry, not just as a disciple, but as a leader as well. In these writings, she recounts that before she met Yeshua, she was trained in the Egyptian temple traditions, specifically within the mysteries of Isis, where she underwent rigorous spiritual preparation. This training involved learning the sacred alchemical practices of divine union, known as the alchemies of Horus. These teachings were designed to transform and awaken the initiate's divine essence, preparing them to serve as spiritual conduits for divine wisdom. Mary's initiation was not merely theoretical, but deeply embodied. As part of the Isis mysteries, she learned the sacred rites of sexual alchemy, a practice intended to merge the divine masculine and feminine forces and facilitating higher states of consciousness. This wisdom allowed her to act as both a spiritual partner and a catalyst for Yeshua's ministry. When they first met, she immediately recognized him as a divine being who carried the Christ light. Their union was not only one of companionship, but of sacred purpose, a continuation of ancient initiatory practices where the priestess played an essential role in elevating the consciousness of the divine masculine. Yet, it was because she was learned in the art of sexual alchemy that later she was branded as a prostitute. It was told then that their love and spiritual mission eventually led to the birth of a child, a detail long obscured by the Orthodox Christian tradition, but preserved in esoteric accounts. As political and religious tensions heightened in Judea, Mary and her child were forced to flee, escaping persecution. According to alternative historical traditions, she traveled to Europe, specifically the regions of Gaul, modern-day France, where she continued her spiritual teachings in secrecy, preserving the sacred wisdom of the divine feminine. Over time, these teachings became embedded in various mystical traditions, including the Cathars and later Templar movements, which revered Mary Magdalene as a vessel of divine wisdom and the true keeper of the Christic mysteries. Yet beyond this, Yeshua and Mary were understood as avatars of the higher Christ and Sophic light, whose stories existed for generations before, as we have seen. For instance, Yeshua is to Osiris, as Mary Magdalene is to Isis, and the cosmic stories have been revered since time immemorial, reflecting even the unity of the masculine and feminine qualities within each human, including the unity between body and soul, or even the left and right hemispheres of the brain. However, if this is all true, why don't we see the reverence for Sophia in our world today? Where did all the Gnostic wisdom go? Well, like with the Gnostics, the suppression of Sophia began with the rise of the Roman Church. As Christianity became the state religion, the emphasis shifted from mystical knowledge to rigid dogma. The divine feminine was gradually erased, and Sophia's role was replaced by a patriarchal vision of divinity. This left a void in the spiritual lives of men and women alike. Women lost a divine figure who could reflect their own spiritual journeys, and men were denied a relationship with the nurturing and intuitive aspects of the divine. In an attempt to fill this void, Mary, the mother of Jesus, was elevated to divine status. Yet even Mary, now revered as the Queen of Heaven, retained only faint echoes of Sophia's wisdom and power. The rich partnership between the masculine and feminine aspects of the divine was lost. The suppression of Sophia also marked a deeper loss, the loss of balance, harmony, and a holistic understanding of the cosmos. Why was this done? Who decided which truths would remain and which would be erased? Who held the pen that rewrote the divine story, shaping what we now call scripture? Because in the end, it wasn't just about what was left out. It was about how the words themselves were changed.
Something is changing. She is rising, awakening from the depths. I know you can feel her. This is not a call to arms. It is a call to soften. For too long, humanity has lived out of sacred balance because the feminine was silenced, buried, and forgotten. We have suffered because of it. The earth has suffered because of it. As she rises from her forced sleep, she does not rise seeking revenge. She does not come to conquer the masculine or to pour out her rage upon him. She does not come to fight at all, but to feel. She seeks to restore the nobility of rest, to honor the seasons, to whisper the lost wisdom of the moon. She comes to sparkle with delight and to plumb the depths of her ecstasy. Her strength is not in her muscles. Her strength is in her sovereignty. Her strength is in her surrender. Her most holy gift is her ability to receive. And receive she must. It is the only way to balance the unchecked masculine running rampant across the planet. Yes, beloved, I know that your heart has been broken, your body betrayed, your voice silenced. No one can deny the injustice or the pain of your long-standing suffering. But the time has come, not to demand recompense, but to release both victim and perpetrator from cycles of blame and pain, to liberate us all from suffering through forgiveness. The time has come to remember who you are. Women, you must learn to trust yourself again, to trust your heart, your womb, your voice. You must love your voice back into its full strength. You must restore truth to your words. You must decide that God is love and love is safe. And yes, you must learn to trust the masculine again. Call him forward back into his power. Show him the value of rest. Honor him, nourish him, celebrate him. Release control and follow his lead. It's the only way you can remind him who he truly is. For without her, without the feminine, he too has forgotten who he is. Beloved son, an honorable king devoted to his purpose and loving his queen with all his magic and all his might. And then, you must become worthy of her trust. Hold her with the purity of your presence. See her, protect her, cherish her. Show her she is safe, with your hands and with your heart. This is the sacred dance. This is the way. It requires both sides, in their fullness and their sovereignty, equal but opposite. And it begins with you.